Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker.
Alright everyone, welcome to episode 110 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan's cabinet okays $1.8 million budget to pay for state funeral for former Prime Minister Abe.
Japan retains economic view in August while flagging impact of rising prices.
4 Indonesian interns receive letters of appreciation for capturing monkey in Japan.
This week in Japan. Alright, so our first story. Japan's cabinet okays $1.8 million to pay for state funeral for former Prime Minister Abe.
Kyoto News has reported that Japan's cabinet has approved a 249 million yen, that's 1.8 million US dollars, allocation to pay for the controversial state funeral next month for slain former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
As the public remains divided over Abe's political legacy and scandals, the cabinet has no plan to urge ministries and related agencies to extend condolences at the time when the funeral will be held on September 27th.
The amount to be fully disbursed from reserve funds of the government's fiscal 2022 budget includes 210 million yen for setting up the Nippon Budokan Hall venue in Tokyo and 30 million yen for a rental fee.
It also covers COVID-19 precautions as well as funding the provision of simultaneous interpretation for foreign guests, but it does not include the cost for security around the venue provided by police, according to government sources.
The price tag is significantly higher than when the government spent some 96 million yen for a funeral in 2020 for former Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone, hosted jointly with the ruling Liberal Democratic Party.
While the public was shocked by the assassination of Abe during a July 8th campaign stump speech in the western city of Nara, it has been divided over whether holding the state funeral for the sometimes controversial figure is appropriate.
For past funerals of former prime ministers in which the state was involved, the cabinet had asked government agencies to offer silent prayers and raise mourning flags, but it decided not to do so this time, apparently to head off further criticism.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno said the government has no plan to seek cooperation in offering condolences from public agencies and related organizations, including local public bodies and education boards, in order to, quote, avoid misunderstanding that we are seeking each and every person to offer condolences.
Matsuno said that some 6,000 people are expected to attend the ceremony, around the same number of people who took part in the most recent state funeral for former Prime Minister Shigeru Yoshida in 1967.
Key foreign figures planning to attend the funeral include former U.S. President Barack Obama, current Vice President Kamala Harris, and French President Emmanuel Macron.
Macron. You have to say Macron.
And former French President Emmanuel Macron.
The funeral for Yoshida, who led Japan as it rose from the ashes of World War II, is the only state funeral held so far in post-war Japan. Past funeral services for former prime ministers who belonged to the Liberal Democratic Party were jointly hosted and paid for by the government and the ruling LDP.
So Parker, let me ask you, and this is a conversation I've had with some Japanese friends. In the United States, somebody like Kobe Bryant dies. We have a huge public funeral for him, right? This isn't just for athletes. This is for, if one of our ex-presidents died, we would have a huge funeral for them. But in Japan, we don't see this very much, do we?
Yeah, it's a different culture, I think, around the death of someone, even someone prominent. It's a lot more solemn and a lot less public. I mean, if a former president dies, I mean, presto changeo, state funeral is sort of automatic, It's a big deal.
Right.
But for a former prime minister of Japan, that same sort of level of, it's hard to use the word pageantry, but basically spectacle is not the norm.
Right. In America, or North America, we tend to put a lot of spectacle behind, I think, these major deaths. Even non-government officials, right? Like athletes and actors, for example. Musicians. The Michael Jackson funeral was incredible.
We just, love to party.
Yeah, America loves to party.
Somebody died. Where's the party?
Prime Minister Fumio Kishida expressed in July his intention to hold a state funeral for the former leader, citing his record 8 years and 8 months as prime minister, as well as the significant recognition he garnered in the international community.
However, the opposition camp has claimed there are no legal provisions for holding a state funeral and has expressed concern that it could be used to cement a positive legacy for Abe while forcing people to engage in public mourning.
A nationwide telephone poll conducted by Kyoto News earlier this month showed 56% were unconvinced by Kishida's explanation for why it is appropriate to hold a state funeral for Abe, while 42% said they accepted it.
The cabinet also approved the resignations of the top bureaucrat of the Japanese police and the head of police security forces, who offered to step down over the failure to stop Abe's assassination.
Itaru Nakamura will be replaced by Yasuhiro Tsuyuki as the National Police Agency's Commissioner General, while Kazuya Hara will take over as head of the Security Bureau in place of Kenichi Sakurazawa as of August 23rd.
The agency concluded in its investigations there was a high likelihood that the attack could have been prevented had the police placed officers in the area behind the Prime Minister as appropriate.
So I did see on Japanese TV the resignation of various police entities, right? And we had talked before about how, especially from an American perspective, the security was really bad. They didn't really seem to do the best job they could have to protect Abe.
Well, and I mean, I'm not going to mince my words here. Up until this assassination, VIP protection in Japan has been pretty shitty.
Right.
And because Japan is such a safe country, I think that there just hasn't been a big enough focus on how the world is changing, and it is so much easier to create weapons and really kind of engage in these sort of guerrilla attacks on VIPs. Right.
It's kind of scary to hear, as we reported, they don't really have any plans for security for this state funeral.
No, they just haven't released the budget for it.
Okay.
I'm sure they have plans. They just don't want to tell you how much it's going to cost.
Yeah. And up next, Japan retains the economic view in August while flagging impact of rising prices.
Kyoto News has also reported that the Japanese government on August 25th kept intact its assessment that the Japanese economy is continuing to recover from the coronavirus pandemic fallout, but warned of rising commodity prices taking a toll on households and businesses.
The Cabinet Office said in its official assessment for August, quote, "The Japanese economy is picking up moderately, while upgrading its view on industrial production and public investment."
As for short-term prospects, the monthly report warned of downside risks derived from a slowing down of overseas economies due to global monetary tightening, and called for attention to the impact of price increases on households and businesses, as well as supply-side constraints.
By component, the government revised upward its assessment of industrial production for the first time in 7 months, saying it is showing signs of picking up as the impact of Chinese lockdowns prompted by the pandemic gradually recedes.
The government also upgraded its view on public investment, reflecting progress in public works projects.
The report said private consumption continues to pick up moderately, reflecting recovery in use of transportation during the summer holidays and the holding of major summer festivals for the first time in 3 years, although spending for travel-related expenses was affected by the resurgence of COVID-19. This is true. I saw many people attending the Fuji Rock Festival, Summer Sonic, all of them without masks and all of them in very close quarters dancing and going crazy.
Just like the Gion Matsuri in Kyoto.
Oh yeah. I haven't heard about this one.
Yeah, it's like everybody just kind of, like the rest of the world, Japan just decided to forget about the pandemic. And then there's this strange resurgence of COVID-19. I just don't get it.
I mean, it wasn't everyone at like Fuji Rock and Summer Sonic, but like, the rave sections, some of my friends like were, on Instagram were posting stuff from those. And it was like, damn, like Woodstock 99, like levels of people getting close and all over each other, all shirtless.
It's a rave.
Yeah, it's a rave.
The report also retained its assessment of corporate profits as improving as a whole, although some weaknesses remain, noting they have benefited from a weak yen despite rising prices of raw materials and a shortage of supplies exerting downward pressure.
The report also left its view that consumer prices are, quote, rising, which is unchanged after the data showed that Japan's core consumer prices excluding perishable foods rose 2.4% in July from a year earlier, making the sharpest gain in about 7.5 years amid surging material and energy prices.
On the other hand, the report downgraded its assessment of the overseas economy for the first time in 3 months, saying the pace of recovery is slowing amid global price increases and monetary tightening.
We've seen a pretty steady and I'd say arguably healthy back and forth between Kuroda being very stern on keeping the low interest rates in Japan, while the US, I think like a month ago, the inflation was like, 8% or so, and they're constantly raising the rates. It's interesting because I thought the yen was going to tank even more. Right now, I think as of today, it's like 136 USD to JPY. And, it seems to have a good resistance level at around 138, 140, which means, the thing about currencies, right, is I like currencies more than I like stocks, and definitely more than I like crypto, because they're based on an actual country and a government, a system of government. They're based on an actual country, a system of governance, and the economies and businesses that exist within that country, which gives it a lot more like substance than some random stock and some like, new venture or cryptocurrency. So amid all these, commodity prices increasing, I think it's good that the yen has been able to weaken to a point, and it stayed at that point. I'd be very worried if it broke the 140 resistance level, went to 150, 160, even to 200. I think at that point, though, the Japanese government would step in. But still, Japan was really big business in Japan was able to profit off of this very unique situation. And because they haven't broken the 138, 140 line, I think it shows that, there's still a lot of faith in Japanese business from external and foreign investors.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, where it's going to go from here. Obviously, I think more analysts, as they haven't seen it go beyond 140, have suggested that maybe it's going to go back to around the 120 level, which of course the government is traditionally more comfortable with, while of course other people think that it will continue to decline. I recently heard an interesting argument by a colleague of mine who said that, the idea of Japan and the Japanese yen as this safe haven currency is bullshit.
Yeah.
And the reason why is nobody needs yen.
Good point. Yeah.
Only Japan needs yen. I mean, people need dollars. Business gets done in dollars and euros and, other sort of global currencies. But obviously, the Japanese yen is the currency of Japan, and you really only need yen in Japan.
Right.
So, of course, investors might invest in yen because it's a, quote, safe haven currency, but it's almost more a speculation than it is an actual need, a pressing need to possess Japanese yen.
Right. It'll be interesting going forward because we know there's a lot of assumptions about what Japan is, right, from foreigners and foreign investors. That's very different from the reality of the situation. So I wonder if, this will finally prove to people that the Japanese yen being a safe haven currency is bullshit, or that kind of mantra will continue in the investing worlds going forward, even after all this calamity is over.
Yeah, and it's really a double-edged sword for people doing business in Japan, because obviously it means that for us making yen in Japan, we're fine as long as we're in Japan, but the second we go overseas, we broke.
Yeah. We broke, man.
We broke. We very broke.
But I think it's a great time. Like if I was a company and I had been mulling over expansion into Japan, like over the past 2 to 5, 10 years, I would do it now. Just because, wow, like everything is on discount. If you want to set up a company here, if you want to buy property here,
it's like a 30% sales going on.
Yeah. I really, 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 really hope. And we've seen some moves with the government the past week, right? With relaxation for being able to come into Japan without the test, right? That's the new one. I really hope we can just get back to where anybody can come back here, because I think foreign investors. There's a lot of investors that have been looking at Japan forever.
And I think that's the other side of the coin. Obviously, the yen cheapening limits are, and of course, other Japanese people's spending power abroad. But I think there's also the argument that a cheaper yen welcomes more foreign investment, which of course increases company profits, which theoretically would lead to rising wages and people caring less about a cheap yen.
So this is my prediction. I think Japan will open up completely again by end of year, or between end of this year and April next year. And in that, I think the yen is not going to go back to say 105, 110. I think the new normal for the yen is going to be between 140 and 120. Because if we're going to have this huge influx of foreigners and foreign investment coming back, they're going to want to keep it low to keep that steady stream. But we'll see the good side of that in Japan if we can get that kind of foreign investment back to the country. So I think the new normal for the yen, I think there's a new normal for the yen. I don't think it's going to go back to normal pricing. I think we're gonna be about at least 10 or 15% decline in anyone who's saving up yen.
Yeah, well, I think the other sort of elephant in the room is what's going to happen to the rest of the global economy, because obviously, people buying yen versus buying other countries' currencies is heavily influenced on what's happening in other places in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And I think right now the big topic is uncertainty. No one knows where the U.S. is going. No one knows where this whole conflict between Russia and the Ukraine is going to go. No one knows what direction this kerfluffle between China and Taiwan is going to end up going into.
Yeah.
There's so much uncertainty right now.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I really think that in the next 6 months to a year, that is going to really influence where the investors go as well, because I mean, we're working on a 24-hour clock now. I mean, investors, analysts around the world are looking at this news, not just monetary news and stock news, but also geopolitical news, and they're making investing decisions and advice based on what they see. So with this uncertainty, I really don't think it's responsible to make any grand prediction about what's going to happen, because it's just so uncertain right now.
Absolutely. And you know what? We were talking earlier about the Japanese yen as a reserve currency being bullshit. It would be awesome if throughout all this, if 6 months from now, if you look back and if Kuroda, Bank of Japan, continues to keep the same interest rate, we'll be able to look at the events that happened over the past year, and Switzerland, the US, many other countries were so reactionary in changing the interest rates, right? And if Japan is seen as this country that, hey, all this crazy shit happened, they didn't change their interest rates. Maybe people will actually be like, okay, well, they're not going to change. If they didn't change for this, they're probably not going to change for that. So maybe we should put some more money into Japan. That would be a silver lining.
Well, then the question is, how logical are investors and analysts?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good, I think that, I don't know, I just came up with that argument, but really, I mean, countries that never change their interest rates, like Switzerland and stuff, have raised them based off of all of the calamity going on globally. It would be really great to see some logic in investors.
Yeah, and if there's more calamity, maybe we can make some calamity chowder.
The Bank of Japan. We're not raising interest rates, but we're making some calamity chowder. Maybe that's really stupid.
We have lots of clams in Japan. I mean, when there's lemons, you make lemonade. So when there's calamity, you make calamity chowder. Don't you understand it? It's American joke. And up next, 4 Indonesian interns receive letters of appreciation for capturing monkey in Japan.
The Mainichi has reported that 4 technical intern trainees from Indonesia received letters of appreciation from the mayor of a West Japan city on August 18th for capturing a Japanese macaque in the city's Ogori area, where monkeys had been attacking residents.
Mayor Kazuki Ito presented letters of appreciation to Gabriel Mau, 29, and 3 other employees of the construction company Choshu Kogyo based in the city. At around 9 p.m. on July 28th, a monkey entered the firm's dormitory where Mau and others live through a second-floor window. The monkey jumped onto Mau, but he held the animal down with his bare hands and captured it with 3 other employees who rushed in to help after noticing the commotion.
Mau's right arm was scratched by the monkey, but he said, "It's healing now, so I'm fine. I am glad that everyone's worries are over."
According to Mau and his colleagues, encounters with monkeys are common in Indonesia, but people are never attacked by them because they run away as soon as they see a human. The 4 smiled and said, "We're used to monkeys."
You know, I've seen video footage of monkeys in other countries. Maybe it was Indonesia, but in Thailand as well. They do run away. But I guess this is a difference between Japanese and other monkeys. The
Japanese monkeys are badass. They don't take any of that shit from no humans.
They fight.
Yeah!
So the mayor in the area, Mayor Ito, said, "We received many requests from our citizens to commend the 4 people. I am very happy to be able to present them with letters of appreciation."
A total of 66 people in the Ogori area were injured in monkey attacks from July 8th to the 28th, but similar incidents have ceased since the 4 captured the monkey.
It's so crazy. I mean, I'm glad we don't have to worry about this in Tokyo. Imagine being in a small city and your neighbor just got like mauled by a monkey, like, and it's like you have to worry about that on your commute.
Good morning, Suzuki-san. How are you? My spleen is bleeding because I got scratched by a monkey.
Imagine like getting on like a public bus or train and then like a bunch of monkeys get on too. Like you wouldn't know what the fuck to do. It'd be so fucking... And like
they just start swinging from the straps.
Yeah,
and
dude,
throwing poop everywhere.
It's totally believable based off of what we've talked about on the show before and what we've seen. And once again,
driver, why did you have to stop at Sarugakyo?
I mean, we've stressed this on the show before, but yeah, these monkey attacks are no joke here in Japan. But it seems you have to get outside of Tokyo to really be victim.
But there was that one monkey that was on the loose and there was everybody chasing it and they didn't chase it very well. You know what? I think, there's this big kerfluffle amongst, people in Japan and the Japanese government about whether to allow more foreign immigration. And I think we found the best pro-immigration story there is in existence. Bring in the immigrants. They'll save us from the monkeys.
Yeah. If only the government were more stealthy and fast to do those kinds of things,
Monkey attacks on the rise. Japanese people afraid of monkeys. Foreigners not so afraid of monkeys. Let's get in more foreigners.
No, it makes sense. I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, in other countries, this is it's a bigger problem in South Asia, right? So,
it's like, isn't this how Planet of the Apes started?
Kind of, but that started with like a smart monkey, right? So,
the monkeys are getting smarter though.
Well, yeah, that's true. Wouldn't it be crazy if if humans were here for another couple thousand years, like a group of monkeys developed like intelligence like close to that of humans?
Maybe the AI is going to decide that monkeys are cooler than humans, and train the monkeys how to destroy the humans.
It will like learn to communicate with the monkeys in a special way that like we can't understand. It's already doing that maybe at Facebook headquarters. They've got Facebook headquarters, they've got a bunch of different animals like locked up in cages.
Monkeys on typewriters. Hell, we got them writing messages.
Man, those monkeys have telekinesis, man. They're transmitting messages from one monkey to another. Man, we can't even explain this. And then we got it hooked up to our new AI. Man, we don't even know what's going on, bro.
It's the only thing we could do to get this whole metaverse thing to make money is put the monkeys in it.
In order to power Meta, we really needed something that could just be an infinite resource that we could use, indefinitely. So that's why we bought 10,000 monkeys from Indonesia and we enslaved them. And we taught them basically how to run the metaverse. So that way at Facebook and our other properties, we could just focus on those and leave the metaverse to the monkeys.
And that's right before, Mark Zuckerberg gets decapitated by a monkey and it starts beating his chest. Ha ha! I am your new leader. You may call me Mark Chimperberg.
All right, and up next on Tokyo Panic Room, Kyoto gets ready to welcome back foreign visitors while addressing over-tourism.
Oh God, it's coming back.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Tokyo Wave.
Tokyo Panic Room.
So the Mainichi recently reported about Kyoto's preparations for a return to foreign tourism, with Japan making the first move towards opening its doors to overseas tourists on guided tours on June 10th. However, at the same time, Kyoto City remains mindful of the balance between the local economy and respect towards residents' lives, as it struggled with over-tourism prior to the pandemic.
In late June, a Mainichi reporter accompanied sociologist Jiro Nakai, age 47, who is a part-time lecturer at Ryukoku University, on a walk from Shijo Ohashi Bridge over the Kamo River in central Kyoto to the area around the city's Gion district. Nakai, who has lived in the Kyoto area since his student years, has observed the area's scenery change along with the surge of foreign tourists. He said, Gion in the past was quiet with a solemn atmosphere and was hard to approach. Following the increase in foreign tourists, the area has become home to noisy crowds. I can attest to this. When you go to Kyoto, everyone tends to go to Gion, or if you ask people where to go, they say go to Gion, you know.
And everyone goes to the same place in Gion too.
Yeah, this is the issue with like the over-tourism and the, what do they call it? The crowd pollution.
Yeah, it's like go to different places. Everybody goes to the same place.
Kinkakuji.
Yeah.
The Golden Temple. Like everyone is there. You can't get any good photograph of that temple. Although in 2020 there was nobody there. That was awesome.
It's like the Austin Powers movie. It's gold.
Yeah.
I heard there's this gold temple in Kyoto. Let's go see it. I'm sure it'll be a hit.
Then we got to go to the Gion district. That's what the tour guide said.
I saw that movie, Memoirs of a Geisha, starring I don't know who.
Those Chinese actresses.
Yeah. I want to see a real one with the white and the kimono and the flip flops. We got to go see that, Billy Bob.
You know, my favorite part about Memoirs of a Geisha is that they did it in English, which I think is very true, historically speaking, and much easier for me to watch it because I can't be bothered to read no subtitles.
Yeah, subtitles, they're like little tiny words that you have to read instead of just listening to English.
Yeah, you know, I think they got basically the whole cast from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was a Hong Kong production, and they just did it in Japan.
I think they didn't even do it in Japan. I think they just did it in Burbank.
Probably something like that. You know, they said in Los Angeles, they got all these Japanese-looking places.
Yeah, they got Japantown and Disneyland, and, you know, they probably just did it there. Editor's note, most of the main cast of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon actually did star in Memoirs of a Geisha.
On a real note, it's very hard to find a movie that is based on something that happened in Japan, takes place in Japan, and stars Japanese actors.
And there is a very simple explanation for this.
I'm very curious.
Most famous Japanese actors aren't good at English. And one of the most important things that most directors and producers look for are leads who they can communicate with closely. And if they have to do that through an interpreter, it's not very close, right?
You know, gosh, we're totally getting off topic, but I got to say, the Parasite director, Bong Joon-ho, who's done a lot of really cool international movies now. He's Korean. He has an interpreter. He gets it done. How come South Korea can do it? Why can't Japan? I mean, I hate to compare Japan to South Korea, but like anyone who has Netflix here in Japan, you know, the top 10 is always Korean drama or Japanese anime, right? And just like the Japanese drama, the dramatic TV series or movies, the quality is it's just tanked over the past, I'd say, 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's like Japan can't make anything fantastic anymore unless it's cartoons.
Yeah. I mean, they make kick-ass anime. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's like it's one of the biggest exports in the world, and all my friends, you know, back home who I never imagined would watch anime are like, yo, have you seen blah, blah, blah? I'm like, no, I haven't actually.
It's actually funny. I mean, Korea's basically whooped Japan's ass in TV and movies and music.
Well,
but they haven't taken animation.
Nah, animation is going to be a tough one. I think the next thing they're going to whoop Japan and the rest of the world in is games.
Ooh, that's going to hurt.
But to be fair, South Korea is kind of becoming the cultural capital of the world. And like, even with music now, like the views and the amount of attention and interaction these K-pop groups are getting with fans everywhere, not just in Japan, but, in the US and all over Asia, is just, the numbers are insane. It's like nothing can really compete with that.
Doesn't help that most modern American music sucks.
Yeah. I wonder when we're going to get back on topic, but recently, and Parker, I know you're the same way. I just listen to stuff from like the 60s to the 90s. I really don't want to listen to anything else these days.
I still listen to the same playlist that I created when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
It's like that music, it's just like stuck in my head. It's the only thing that I listen to. Yeah.
That's not to say that there's not great new artists. We've talked about Doja Cat, Dua Lipa, a lot of other incredible artists. Even in Japan, there's great new artists, but the numbers are so low. It's like out of like 10,000 artists, there's like 10 or 20 that like are really like, wow, they're making modern bangers that are unique. And it's like, influenced from old music. And
yeah, and I think there's like no, 2020s sound. It's just like, all the cool stuff is basically a throwback to something.
Yeah. If you ask someone what the 2020 sound was, they'd probably say something like Billie Eilish, which has a lot of money behind her. Is, when Billie Eilish released her album a couple of years ago here in Japan, when she released it in the world, I remember seeing advertisements in Shibuya and even here in Harajuku. And I'm like, damn, like those are the most expensive places to put up ads. But she was everywhere. I mean, she's like $1 billion investment, and that's like what it takes now. Like music has been so,
yeah, it's become like, the NFL. You have to have so much money to play the game. And
you've got to have so many people that work behind the scenes to agree on something, right? We're going to draft that guy on our team. You got to have a lot of millionaires sitting at a table, all agree on the same thing. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. And all the millionaires hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
And then the monkeys took over.
We really got off topic there, but
yeah, guys, back to Kyoto. Gion, being the largest hanamachi or entertainment district in Kyoto, rows of tea houses and eateries are all over the place, centered on Hanamikoji Street. These establishments have a tradition of turning down first-time customers and originally had fewer tourists compared to other spots in Kyoto. But the number of visitors suddenly rose in around 2014. Cases of foreigners taking photos on private property and littering on the streets continuously emerged in Japanese media, and the Japanese term, quote, tourism pollution began to be used around this time.
In a book published in 2019, Nakai shared the voices of bewildered locals and the reality of foreign tourists and other people chasing after, quote, maiko, or apprentice geisha, with cameras in hand. Around this time, many buses in Kyoto were full of tourists with suitcases, leading to frequent cases where local residents were unable to easily use public transport. I visited Kyoto on one of these times, and oh my gosh, if I was a local resident, I would just be going nuts. You know what's funny, Parker? I live in a very touristy part of Tokyo. I live right next to Tokyo Disneyland, but I never have issues with like a bus full of people with suitcases.
That's because the resort is right in front of a train station, buddy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, not everybody stays right at the hotel. There's so many hotels, even close to where I live, that are branded as like Disney hotels. I'm surprised how Disney's done a pretty good job of keeping tourism pollution pretty low.
That's because they've got that monorail.
Yeah.
With the windows shaped like Mickey Mouse.
But I mean, even outside of that zone, like in Urayasu, there's big hotels everywhere. A lot of them have shuttle buses, though. Now that I think of it, even if they're far away.
With windows shaped like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's counting down till we get sued by Disney. So about 6 months after this book's publication, the number of tourists began to plummet amid the spread of the coronavirus. According to the Kyoto municipal government, the number of visitors staying overnight in Kyoto fell from 13.1 million people in 2019 to 5.3 million in 2020 and 5.1 million in 2021. Among them, the number of foreign tourists reached 3.7 million in 2019, but plummeted by 90% in 2020 to stand at 440,000. In 2021, there were only 50,000 foreign visitors who stayed at hotels and other accommodation facilities in Kyoto, and two of them were Aaron and Parker.
Wow, those numbers are nuts. So after crowds vanished from entertainment districts, some members of the local community said their lives had become more comfortable. At the same time, however, a dismal atmosphere hung over the hushed streets as the Yamahoko Float Parade, the highlight of the Gion Festival, was canceled for 2 years in a row. The Gozan Okuribi Bonfire Festival was additionally scaled down. Other issues also came to light.
The sociologist Nakai said while walking along the riverbank with few people in sight, quote, "While foreign tourists have disappeared, the amount of garbage in the Kamo River has not decreased. Despite Kyoto having flourished thanks to tourism, people may have forgotten this point and laid the blame on tourists."
With a history of over 400 years, the city's Nishiki market, known as Kyoto's Kitchen, also benefited from high foreign tourist numbers. The 76-year-old owner of a kamaboko fish cake store, who grew up in the market, said sales doubled amid the rise in inbound tourism. The owner commented, "Above all else, there was a great number of foreign tourists. It was a great help. However, the store's profits decreased by 80% at one point during COVID-19.
I can attest to this. I went to the Nishiki market, of course, last year, and it was pretty much empty.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. It's like, I was wondering, like, where are the people buying stuff from here?
And what do they just threw everything out?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of that going on.
Such a waste. Yeah.
And I mean, you can even see the shelves are kind of half empty.
Yeah.
As a result. So a decline in tourism, of course, impacts not only the local economy, but also the daily lives of residents. The number of city bus users fell drastically. The city's accommodation tax revenue, which is used for protecting cultural properties and other purposes, also fell from 4.2 billion yen, which is about 31 million USD in fiscal 2019, to 1.3 billion yen, which is about 9 million USD in fiscal 2020.
The Kyoto municipal government has been actively releasing such information on its official website. Its tax revenue from tourism for fiscal 2019 is estimated at 39 billion yen, or roughly $290 million, accounting for 12 or 13% of the city's total revenue from taxes. That's quite a lot. A city official said, "If tourists continue to stay away, there are concerns that administrative services will not be able to be maintained."
In November 2020, the municipal government and Kyoto City Tourism Association created a, quote, code of conduct for sustainable tourism in Kyoto that called for tourism businesses to respect residents' daily lives and urge them to spread the community's rules and manners among visitors. In this way, Kyoto as a whole has been tackling the challenge of promoting tourism in the area while taking heed to prevent tourist-related problems ahead of a full-fledged return of inbound guests.
Personally speaking, I'd love to see just a huge explosive return to 2019 levels of tourism.
And actually, I've heard a lot of people saying that it is coming.
Yeah.
And it's coming for pretty obvious reasons. Tourism has rebounded everywhere around the world except for Japan.
This is true.
This sort of quote, revenge tourism is a huge topic. Planes across America and Europe are full again. Mm-hmm. People are going on vacation. I mean, August, everybody went on vacation, international vacations.
Yep.
They went to the beach. They went to the mountains.
They went to Europe.
They went all over the place, even Japanese tourists, but of course not to the same magnitude. Mm-hmm. However, as long as foreign tourists cannot physically come to Japan, the ability of Japan to reap the benefits of this rebound, quote, revenge tourism is not happening. And last time I checked, foreign tourists aren't really too keen on the whole, supervised tour group thing. So, I mean, that's obviously a trial balloon, but it's not going to bring in the numbers that's going to move the needle for inbound tourism to Japan.
Right.
So, Prime Minister Kishida, when you gonna open the floodgates, son? Because we got all these people and they want to protect us from the monkeys.
Like everyone else, we're also very eagerly awaiting just the news that Japan will open back up with no conditions. Please, no conditions. Just open up.
Yeah, it's like there's an entire economy that has been bleeding money for close to 3 years. And it's really unclear, whether a lot of these businesses will be able to stay intact if these restrictive entry restrictions stay. I mean, 6 months ago, it would have been debatable, should we really return to full-fledged tourism? Is it going to make COVID cases, go crazy? And now, of course, Japan's got the highest number of COVID cases in the world.
Yeah.
Of course, it is kind of related to the fact that Japan's the only place that still counts. But, Japan is actually planning on changing that policy.
Ooh.
That was the news this morning, actually, that Japan is now only going to count cases among the elderly.
Interesting. Okay.
So Japan is like, we got to get people to stop being paranoid about the pandemic.
Yeah.
I have an idea. Let's stop counting.
Similar to the local government in Florida.
Like everywhere else around the world.
Yeah. One comment on the recent change in entry restrictions. Now, if you're triple vaxxed, you don't have to do you don't have to fill out the paperwork whenever you're coming back to Japan. And this applies to Japanese and also to foreign residents. One of my friends, though, who works for one of the largest travel agencies, said they basically did away with some old, very pain in the ass rules. And now they've got another set of pain in the ass rules because triple vaxxed does not mean that all vaccines count. So they're going to have to now look and see what vaccine each person got. And it has to be one of the approved vaccines, right? So it's just, they got to get rid of these conditions because they're creating more work for themselves.
The monkeys are going to take over, man. We're screwed.
Let's hope the Bank of Japan and the government of Japan are quicker than the monkeys.
Got to bring back the foreigners or the monkeys are going to take over. We should yell it from the rooftops.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.